Hello, my dear students. Have you ever imagined traveling back in time to a world without smartphones, computers, or electricity? Come and let's explore this fascinating history of our ancient civilization. Today, we'll begin timeline and sources of history. First of all, what is history? It is the study of human past. Have you ever wondered the major stages in the evolution of life on the earth? Let's begin. If you can see this picture, you can visualize that the timeline in this image presents the evolution of life on Earth, covering billions of years ago. It begins with the formation of Earth and appearance of first cell around 3.8 to 4 billion years ago. And this was followed by development of bacteria, sponges, fungi, and corals. And about 2.5 billion years ago, atmospheric oxygen began to build up, creating conditions that were necessary for more complex life forms. Around 700 to 500 million years ago, vertebrates and fish evolved. Sharks and other marine animals followed. And by 300 million years ago, reptiles and dinosaurs roamed the earth. Birds, mammals, flowers, all that emerged with time. Then pyramids evolved around 10 million years ago. Then our human ancestors like Homo sapiens appeared 3 million years ago. Then the discovery of fire and so on. But the point is, why it is important to understand the history? Why are we studying this? See, understanding this long history helps us to realize that humans have existed for a very short time compared to the age of Earth. It shows that how life has gradually evolved and adapted to changing environments. Learning about the past helps us appreciate nature, understand the present day, and challenges like climate change, extinction. It makes us informed so that we can take the decisions accordingly for the future. Do you know about different experts who helped us study the history of the earth? And what does each one study? So, to understand the history of Earth and human civilization, different kinds of experts study various aspects of past. These include geologist, paleontologist, anthropologist, and archaeologist. We'll talk about geologists first. So, geologists study the physical features of the earth. They examine soil, stones, hills, mountains, rivers, seas, oceans, and other parts of the earth's surface to understand how earth has changed over time. Paleontologists study the remain of plants, animals, and humans from millions of years ago, which are often found in the form of fossils. Fossils are the impressions or part of organisms that are preserved in the rock layers. Anthropologists study human societies and cultures. They examine how people live from ancient times to the present day, focusing on the custom, traditions, social practices, and daily life. Then are archaeologists. They study the past by digging up remains left behind by people. These include tools, pottery, beads, toys, bones, teeth, and so on. These objects give clues about how people lived in the past. Now, when we talked about fossils, fossils are the dead and decaying remains that we find under the layer of the soil. But what is the role of these fossils in understanding the past and who studies them? So, fossil plays a crucial role in helping us understand life on Earth millions of years ago. They are the preserved impressions of remains of plants and animals. They provide evidence of creatures that once lived but are now extinct. The experts who study fossils are called paleontologists, and they carefully examine fossils to find out when the organism lived, what it ate, how it moved, and this helps us in reconstructing ancient environment and understanding the evolution of life on earth. But the question arises that how is time measured in history? So, in history, time is measured in various ways to understand the different events that took place. Different societies, cultures, they had their own system of recording time. For example, the birth of an important person, the beginning of a ruler's reign, or significant religious or historical incidents, so on. So, by measuring time in this way, we can better understand the duration, cause, and effects of the past events. Have you ever heard about the terms AD, BC, CE, BCE? Let's begin. So, in history, time is measured using a calendar system that helps organize events in a chronological order. One of the most widely used calendar system today is Gregorian calendar, which has 12 months, 365 days with a leap year after every 4 years. The birth of Jesus Christ is taken as central reference point in the system and time is divided into main periods. AD, that is Anno Domini. This is a Latin phrase meaning in the year of our Lord. It refers to the years after the birth of Jesus. Then is BC, whereas before Christ, it refers to the time before the birth of Jesus Christ. Then today, to make the system more inclusive and non-religious, historians also use CE, that is Common Era, and BCE, before Common Era. This method helps us keep track of events in history across different periods and cultures in a standardized way. When we talk about this Gregorian calendar, it's a calendar system most commonly used across the world today. It was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582 to correct inaccuracies in the earlier calendar. This calendar helps people mark important days such as festivals, historical events, and it provides a standard system for counting years, making it easier to compare and record events from around the world. In history, the Gregorian calendar allows us to place events in a timeline using those terms like AD, CE, BC, BCE, and it's especially useful when studying and writing about the sequence of global events such as Ice Age, the invention of writing, or the rise of civilization. Now we'll move towards the timelines. Now, what does the timelines on this page indicates, and we are going to explain the importance of using these timelines in the history. So the timeline on this page shows how major events from around 3 million BCE onwards, and one of the earliest events shown in the first example of the rock art in the world. Now, timelines are very important in history as they help to organize historical events in correct order, to give a clear visual representation of what events happened. Then they make it easier to compare the time periods of different events. They even help in understanding the duration and time gap between events, and timelines are a helpful tool for students and historians to study ancient to modern history in a very structured way. When we study history, we need certain sources. So there are four kind of sources that we get. First is the archaeological source. These sources come from the excavations and ancient structures like monuments, buildings, etc. Then is literary source. These include written records like Ved, Puran, etc. Then is artistic source. This gives us visual information about the past like paintings, sculptures, etc. Then our oral sources, these are the tradition passed down by word of mouth. So all these sources together helps us build a clear picture of the past. Now when we talk about the sources, why are these archaeological sources important? They're important as they give direct evidence of how people lived in the past. The structures like monuments, temples, they show the architectural styles. Then remains of humans, animals, plants helps us to understand food habits and environment. Pottery, toys show their artistic skills and children's life. And since many ancient society didn't leave written records, these archaeological sources helps us fill those gaps. Literary sources again helped us to understand what people believed, valued, and thought in the past. Foreign accounts provide an outside view of Indian society and trade. Then the inscriptions and manuscripts help date events accurately. But the question is, what are these manuscripts and inscriptions? See, manuscripts are the written records by hand, whereas Inscription are the written records which are on the hard materials like metals or rocks. Then manuscripts is written on plain palm leaves or birch bark of the birch tree, whereas inscriptions are recorded on hard material. So manuscripts are easy to write but not last long, whereas inscriptions are tough to write but they can stay long. Example of manuscript include Vedas, whereas inscriptions are on the hard surfaces like stone, etc. Now, who are historians? Historians are the people who study and write about the past. And what is genetics? Genetics is the branch of biology that study how in plants, animals, or humans certain features and characteristics get passed down from one generation to the next. Now, who helps in the reconstruction of history beside historians? So, beside historians, many other experts contribute to the reconstruction of history. These includes archaeologists. They study ancient remains and sites. Then is epigraphists who study ancient inscriptions. Then is anthropologists who study human societies and their cultures, and experts in literature, language, and scientists who provide information through studies of ancient climates, chemical analysis of excavated materials, genetics of ancient people. So all these contribution helps us to get a more clear understand of our history. But does this scientific study helps us in understanding history better in recent times? Yes, it does. As studies of ancient climate which helps us understand how weather and environment influence civilization, chemical analysis of excavated materials which provide information about the tools, ornaments and the daily life of the people. Then again, genetics studies of ancient people reveal information about their health, origin and migration. These scientific findings offer fresh insights that go beyond the usual source, like written records, or help historians develop a clearer and deeper understanding of the past. Do you know about the life of the early humans and how did they survive? See, early humans faced many challenges from nature and lived in groups or bands to help each other. They are always searching for shelter and food for survival. They were mainly hunters and gatherers. This means they depended on hunting animals and collecting edible plants, fruits, and roots. They did not grow food at that time but relied on what they could find in nature. They also lived in rock shelters, worked together to protect themselves, and over time, early humans developed beliefs about nature and possibly had some idea of life after death. Now, in this picture, you can see that some early humans are hunting animals with spears and stones. So, this shows how they got their food by hunting. Others are seen collecting water from the stream, which are essential for their survival, and some are sitting together, probably preparing food or discussing things, which shows social bonding and group living also. So few people appear to be resting or making tools which are necessary for everyday life, like cutting, scraping, or hunting. And these activities reflect how early humans lived closely with nature and depended on natural resources for their daily needs. And they always lived in groups, as living in groups helped them protect each other from wild animals or dangers and hunt together, which made it easier for them to catch animals. They share food, resources, learn from each other, like how to make tools or identify edible plants. So, group living made survival easier in the harsh natural environment they lived in. But how did early humans start farming? And what changes followed the end of Ice Age? See, during the Ice Age, much of the earth was covered in ice and the climate was very cold. As the Ice Age ended around 12,000 years ago, the climate became warmer and the ice started to melt and rivers began to swell with melting water. So, this changed the environment more suitable for humans to live in. After the Ice Age, living conditions improved. Humans began to settle in one place instead of constantly moving from here to there, and they started growing crops like cereals, grains, which marked the beginning of agriculture. People also began to domesticate animals such as cattle, goat, and with a steady supply of food, human communities grew in size and began to settle near rivers, where the soil was fertile, water was available, and this change helped in the development of the farming societies. Can you guess how was the lifestyle and cultural practices of these early humans? So before the start of this farming, early humans lived in temporary camps or caves. They communicated using spoken languages, though they are now lost. And they used fire, made tools like stone axes, arrowheads that they used in the daily life. So this made their work easy for hunting and gathering their food. Then cave paintings made by early humans gives us a clues about their life. These paintings often show animals, humans, symbols, or scenes from daily life. They also started making ornaments from stones, shells, animal teeth, and this shows that even before agriculture, every human had developed skills of art and a sense of community. They worked together to survive and began forming simple cultural practices. But how did these early human communities become more complex over time? So, as human communities grew in size, the social structure became more complex. Leaders, chieftains were chosen to look after the welfare of the people, ensuring health, prosperity, and well being. The community worked together, and there was no concept of private ownership. Land was collectively used for sowing and harvesting. Over time, small settlements known as hamlets grew into larger villages, and these villages exchanged goods like food, clothing, tools, and with the development of communication network, villages began to connect and eventually grow into towns. So now new technology also began to emerge, such as pottery, clay, metal tools, and early humans learned to use copper and later iron to make durable tools and ornaments. So these advancements marked the beginning of a more organized and skilled society, setting the stage of emergence of civilization. But whenever we grow, we face challenges. So early human also faced certain challenges which helped him to grow and progress. These challenges could be nature, that include harsh climate, threats from animals, and at times their survival was at risk. Some early human species even disappeared. However, the courage of our ancestors helped them to adapt and survive. Over time, they developed tools, formed groups, and learned to communicate. They made permanent homes, grew crops, domesticated animals, which gave them more stable food supply. Then communities became organized with leaders and they started exchanging goods and ideas. So, all of these changes made it possible for the humans to survive, and their progress in solving everyday problems prepared humans for a more structured and advanced way of life, eventually leading to the birth of ancient civilization. Hope you have understood this chapter very well. For any queries, drop your question in the comment box and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel.